And now, Tales from the Elkman. Hello everybody, welcome to Tales from the Elkman. Today we're going to be talking about summer camp story times. Yay! First off, I should preface this that I am recording outside right now, so excuse for the terrible audio noises of wind, nature, or savage squirrel attack that is probably likely to occur. I don't know, things like that happen in my life. Speaking of crazy things that happen, let's talk about this for a bit. I got this as the original idea to make this whole show about. It was the core idea at first, but I had a lot of other ideas and stories that wouldn't quite fit into this particular mold, but I knew that I had just a very vast collection of stories I had from my time at summer camp to tell in its own series. So I decided to just format that into its specific own little series or collection here, which I'm going to be dubbing Summer Camp Storytime. First off, I must probably answer the critical question many of you shut-in, sheltered individuals may be asking. What's summer camp? My mommy never let me go to summer camp. Well, for all you, helicopter-parented individuals, hush up for a moment, Johnny Camper, and I may just be able to tell you. Camp, my dear listeners, is a magical place that your parents send you off to in the summer, and maybe other times throughout the year, because they don't love you. And they wanted you out of the house so that they didn't have to watch you. Hence, of course, occurring over the summer when school's out. And without them wanting to watch you, they put it all in the guise of making you learn about something important. Usually these summer camps have a theme, or they're part of a bigger group. Something along those lines to kind of trick you into thinking that you're doing something meaningful, instead of just getting you out of the house. Which is a shame, because your parents probably had to spend a lot of money for that. Whoopsies! A few things to just know about my camp experience and context prior to going in further. I did not go to band camp. That's nasty and cliche, and y'all should know by now that I have a very high standard of quality with my life experiences. Gosh. No. I went to Boy Scout camp, which is somehow a whole lot worse and a whole lot better all at once. Number two, no matter what I talk about in these stories and my reflection on my more immediate opinions as these things occurred, as I tell them, with hindsight, I will say that many of my years at camp overall were some of the best in my life. They taught me a lot about myself and the world, as well as giving me some of my best friends in my life. These are overall good experiences. Just in the moment, they're not always going to seem the best, but maybe some of that non-enjoyment might be entertaining for you. So who knows? I don't know. But anyway, the point is, these are overall incredible experiences that I want to share with you guys that might just be humorous or informative for y'all. Also, none of what I should say should reflect negatively on Scouts BSA in the past and or present, and as a whole, as an organization, don't think of this as like a negative opinion. All opinions that I have, negative, positive, or the experiences I'm going to be sharing are specific to individuals, likely myself and my own stupid actions that I've made. So just don't take this as like, oh, he's just going to complain about something the whole time. Don't do that. No. No. Now with that out of the way, let's gather around the campfire and hear some tales from the Elkman. Today I want to focus more on talking about my general life as a camper, being a camper specifically, and the key traits that highlight the most essential experiences. So here we go. Number 1. Girl goggles. Now this is more of a story for my fellas, my bros, my home skillets. I think it is pretty unanimous that between the ages of, let's say, 12 and 14, those prime quality middle school years, were more or less a terrible, chaotic, confusing experience all around. Yeah, hormones. I first realized this when I was 12, most likely, as my first year as a camper. It was a Boy Scout camp, so of course it was all boys. At the time. Anywho, aside from the occasional troop mom or female unit leader, there were no girls at the camp. Except for, of course, the staff. There was always a handful of girls and proper adults. I will specify girls because some of them were as young as 16, which was kind of an interesting dynamic because some of the boys could be even older than that, up to 18 years old before you aged out. Now, here's the dynamic. You get a bunch of adolescent young boys and teenagers trapped in the woods for a week with no internet. These girls were our only communication to the presence of woman or femininity and femininity. Now that may sound bad, but it was just the truth. There was nothing wrong with these girls. But while the boys had only been there a few days and the woods were already smelling bad, the staff had been there for weeks. even months, and be brutally honest. Just brutally honest. Let's face it, if they smell bad, their clothes are in terrible condition, don't even get started on their hair. But it didn't matter. Many young lads had their first crush at Boy Scout camp, if there was a female staffer. And I would easily put money on that. I was personally cursed with a severe case of girl goggles when I could only see these dirty, smelly women, who at the time I thought were totally awesome. There were many throughout the years, many of who I didn't name, but there's one in particular that I think is just a really interesting take on it. Specifically, there was one counselor named Jen. Jen, first off, freaking awesome. She was 17 my first year, and literally just all around totally awesome person to this day. One of the coolest people I've ever met. She taught art and craft related stuff, and she was just funny as hell. She would swear like a sailor, and you would not expect it. Not gonna lie, I thought Jen was one of the most badass women ever at the time. She just didn't care and had a super cool attitude the whole time. And it became even cool later when after a few years we met up again and became friends, and I see her now like a big sister. Totally cool relationship. I told her all this once about that how I saw her, and she was like, "Aw, wait, we all smelled and looked like butt." Also, by the way, Jen worked at Domino's where I lived growing up, and whenever they'd get pizza, she'd give me her family discount, which was totally awesome. So, thanks, Jen. You're an awesome dude. Official dude. Stamp approval. Official dude status. You're a real home skilled in the book. Tag that in the record logs, boys. And this moral of the story here, my dudes, of girl goggles from camp is that they're deceiving. And it ain't about looks. It's about the dude within that makes them awesome. Be like Jen, y'all. Be the true awesome dude that we all have within us. Number 2, praying to the fire gods. Listen, you may not have been involved in Boy Scouts, but you all have met some Boy Scouts in your life. It's a big group. It's been around for a long time. It's an organization. Boy Scouts is an organization that has been around for over 100 years in America, and that serves to create fine young men, and even recently women, into competent, successful citizens of the nation and world. They try to teach typical good people skills to make them successful and, competent at living life in society. However, a small, minor, teensy-weensy tangent result to also consider is that Boy Scouts, from my very thorough and detailed research as well as my personal experience, was that almost all Scouters are likely to become a pyromaniac in some capacity. But that's just very small, tiny tangent result to consider. Unfortunately, due to another fun story for a later time, I actually had a kind of a terrible, weird phobia of fire. Not gonna lie. Totally not okay with fire in general right now. Kind of freaks me out. But we're not talking about that today. We'll save that for another day. Today, we're going to be talking about the good old days when I learned about the basic principles of chemistry and physics through literal trial by fire. And by the way, before I start explaining any of these fun stories of fire and related subjects, don't try any of this at home. It's not safe. It's dumb. Don't be like me. These are just not fun. Unless you're already like me and you're pretty sure of what kind of person you are and you've already done this on your own or you're convinced by your friends to try a cool new thing like me. Yeah, sure, I don't know. I can't tell you what not to do, but just, be safe. Don't be dumb. Anyway, I learned everything about fire and fire building from scout camp, basically, as a camper. Example, one of my old unit leaders, Mr. P, he was awesome. He was a Vietnam vet. He would always try to give all the kids these very meaningful talks about life and try to inspire us, which he was really good at and was just a very good speaker. And also, he would always say he couldn't legally talk about a bunch of stuff he did when he was a soldier in Vietnam because he did a bunch of super shady stuff for the CIA and other task force at the time, which is a real shame for a story sponge like myself. Thankfully, though, he was really old and forgetful about his principal and would tell us all these crazy stuff all the time, which is great for me. One time, he showed us how to make a flare, a fully functioning flare, with a plastic tube filled with hand sanitizer and magnesium shavings. And that was it. And the full flare would just light up. Oh, what a boss. He was the best. Most scout functions typically have fire building competitions at some point, which challenge campers would build fires in new and inventive ways in the shortest amount of time. And trust me, whenever it was a competition when I had to make a fire without using anything aside from, lighters and or matches, be sure that I was definitely using that flare trick a couple of times. There's just a lot of there's a bunch of cool different things you can do to make fires that aren't what you typically think. And they're really nifty survival tricks, but also just kind of fun parlor tricks, as long as you know how to do them safe and, be cool. And speaking about fire is going to lead into this next bit, but not quite the emphasis. Just be aware, the entire of the culture and idea that campers had of what I kind of consider praying to or appeasing the gods of the flame that we all respected and believed in. Number 3, campfire creativity. This is not exclusive to just scout camp, but it should be known that most week-long sleepaway style camps typically end with a big campfire sorts on the final night. And the camp I went to was no different. Although our camp was so awesome that we actually had 2 campfires, so ha! One at the start of the week, put on by the staff, and they all had skits and songs. Then one at the end, put on by the campers, again with skits and songs and such. The closing campfire was definitely the more grand and respected event, because along with the skits and songs, there was emphasis put on the campers and the kids to show what they had done the week, and there'd be awards and yada yada yada. Anyway, it was a big show and kind of a cool deal. Now, for a time, my troop that I was in had a perfect skit, one that we would perform every year at campfire for as long as anyone in the troop could remember. And our troop had been around for like 40 years, so like imagine a bunch of kids in the 70s being stupid into the skit. And yes, and that skit was called JCPenney. Let me explain. JCPenney, my dear listeners, involved one camper standing in the center of the campfire area stage and would be greeted by a long train of other campers sporting some kind of specific clothing. The one in the middle would say something along the lines of, "Hey, nice shoes, where'd you get from them?" And the person walked by would say only JCPenney before walking away. The train of fashionable campers would continue until almost all articles of clothing and accessories would have been called out at some point. The last person to come out would not have been in the train, but actually runs out after they had all gone through, wearing nothing more than a plain white t-shirt and gym shorts. And the man in the middle would ask, "Who are you?" And the other camper would respond, JCPenney. Then all the other campers would come back yelling, "Hey, it's him, get him!" and attack JCPenney as to him for a continuation of the assured earlier mugging. And that's it. You'd walk off and it was classy, and laughter would obviously ensue, because that's hilarious. However, eventually, adult leaders and staff told us that we couldn't do it anymore because it was exposing of the child and violated youth protection. Psh, stupid PC culture. And that wouldn't have been an issue if it wasn't just expressed to us the last day of camp, about 3 hours before we had to do a skit at campfire. So we had to come up with a whole new skit idea with only a few hours to plan it out and prepare for it. Fortunately for the troop, me and my brother, the epic and legendary Moose Man and Elkman, are naturally creative geniuses, and we come up with a whole new skit that was absolutely incredible, and would be parodied by staff and other troops alike for years to come. It was a very long one, but to make it short and to summarize, basically, we had a bunch of little sketches to show how different groups look at scout camp saw each other, essentially, how they would see each other within the culture and such. Like the older scouts would see a bunch of the young scouts as relentless hordes of zombies, and then we just have a bunch of the young kids dogpiling some of the older kids and go, "Ah!" And how the Scoutmaster style scouts as little savages, and we had a scout run out with a knife yelling, "Stab! Stab! Knife! Stab!" And then kneel before the giant fire. And remember how I had talked about the fire culture and, appeasing the lords of fire. "Praise the fire!" he would yell loudly. Laughter would, of course, ensue. Our closing contrast sketch was how scouts saw themselves. We had 2 kids go out there being, "Oh man, look at all these patches, my uniform, my belt buckle. Man, I look good." And the contrast to that was simply titled, Scouting in Reality. My brother walked out with the mic, very nonchalant, nothing particularly interesting. Stopped in the middle of the campfire area, looked right out into the crowd, smells his armpits, then softly says into the mic, "Gross." Then he walks away, scene done. What a knee slapper, right? Yeah, and that about sums up my experience as a camper at Scout Camp. Knives, fire, inspiration from staff leaders, stupid adults ruining fun, stupid children ruining fun, and lovely campfires to express the wonderful creativity and imagination of a teenage child. However, if y'all want to know more info on what it's like to be about a camper at Scout Camp, my brother, yes, the Moose Man himself, made a short film about it while he was there. The Moose Man's official acting, directing, writing, and producing debut into the world of cinema can be found on YouTube, link in the description below. Of course you won't know which is the legendary Moose Man, for he and I are like Batman, and our identities must be kept a secret to protect those we love, as well as our reputation, and our embarrassment, and also our membership in Skyland's Hold. Please don't kick me out. However, the story does not end there. Oh no, my friends, for today was only about my tenure as a camper at Scout Camp. But I hear you say, but that was only for 3 years, Mr. Elkman. If you started camp when you were 12 and you're only there for 3 years, then you left camp at like 15. What the heck? Oh no. No. You don't understand. After 3 years, I did quit my time at camp as a camper. Because when I turned 15, I got my first official summer job as a camp counselor. And that's where the real story begins. But we're going to have to save that for another day. Check out my other stories that I have shared with the world on the channel. That's it for today. Subscribe for more tales from the Elkman, and have a solid day, my dudes.